Welcome to Wisdom Talk Radio, a collaborative community of explorers in conscious living. Welcome to today's episode of Wisdom Talk Radio. This is where we get to explore the depths of conscious living and what it truly means to live an expanded life. Join us to be inspired, maybe even amazed, encouraged, transformed, and to experience a deeper sense of joy and of possibility. The last time that Jeff Vander Clute, my guest today, was with us here on Wisdom Talk Radio, I had thought we were going to talk about money. He's been doing a lot of writing about it. It was what he was saying about it was really appealing and very provocative, because Jeff is really a profound thinker and speaker of truth about so many things that last time we never got to talk about money. So stay tuned for today's Enlightenment conversation. I'm Laurie Seymour, host of Wisdom Talk Radio and CEO and founder of the Baca Institute, home of the quantum connection process. You can go over to the Baca Institute to discover your unique connection with the essence of who you are by taking the quantum connection quiz. And what I mean by the essence of who you are is that it's your own connection with Source, how you are most intimately designed to directly connect with Source. And knowing your own style definitely opens a deeper connection with the universe for you. And it's the secret to creating what you truly want in your life. Because who you are is exactly who is needed. Now, I'm about to read Jeff's bio. He just told me that it's a little bit changed, so we'll leave that door open for him to say, well, maybe this is where it is today. I know he is still an author, mentor, and he called himself then, maybe not now, a coach from the future, which I loved, who supports individuals in awakening, healing, and reaching new heights in their life and in their work. Through practices of deep listening and what he calls sourcing, he enables people to see where their healed and awakened self is present right now. And then he goes on to help them navigate all the complexity that is inherent in that, to lead with heart and wisdom, and build enlightened organizations that grow well-being for all. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you, Laurie. I feel very welcomed. And actually, I wouldn't change the bio. And it's great. It could be like a best practice even to start by saying all bios are provisional. The human is unfolding. The human is evolving from one day to the next. That was so 2024. And some things do endure, at least for a time. And yeah, those words still resonate. So I would add nothing. I would subtract nothing. I'm just ready to dive in.
Okay. So, the reason I wanted to talk about money last time and the reason why I invited you back here, which I rarely do, by the way, I rarely have people on a second time. But the reason I wanted to do that is because it's so fundamental and it's so misunderstood. It's so fundamental to life in the physical world. It's a fundamental there are fundamental understandings about money that have to do with energy. And just about everybody I know is caught up in one way or another with money struggles, money issues, concerns about money, thoughts about money. And as I said, so much of that is misunderstood. So that's why I wanted to have you back, and was insistent on, okay, we're going to talk about money, and we'll still see where that takes us. Perhaps I want to just invite you to start talking about what is money? What is money in this from this place of a deeper understanding?
Right. Well, Actually, I'm first inspired to say, just as the river is never the same from moment to moment, I'm showing up differently. It's a new Jeff, perhaps. So this is my first time on your show, and we'll see what emerges
Yeah.
spontaneously in relation to money, because I don't have, what would be the word? I don't have a shtick about money. There's not
Right.
like a specific thing that I'm known for, though the phrase the enlightenment of money came to me with a lot of juice, a lot of energy, and a lot of joy some time ago, I think in 2019, maybe even all the way back in 2018. So the enlightenment of money has been reverberating in my mind and heart, and it has taken some time for that reverberation to gain some expression and something that I could articulate and share. And I'm happy that in the last 6 years, 7 years, there is now something to share about it.
Mhm.
And I'll say also there are many people who study money, who talk about money, who teach about the energy of money. And so I want to first of all honor the many excellent bodies of work that exist. And the phrase standing on the shoulders of giants also is appropriate here. So um, I won't reiterate what has been said beautifully in so many cases. What surprised me back in 2017, even before the phrase the enlightenment of money came, was the recognition in a money workshop
Mhm.
that money is divine. And that even has been said before. However, I was really tuning into it, and I was seeing and feeling that money, and this is a controversial thing to say, money actually is God. Because
Mhm.
in oneness, in non-separation, how could it be otherwise? Now, it has been said in other ways with totally different energy that money is God, as in a kind of idol
Ah.
that is
Mhm.
placed before the divine and something that is worshipped instead of the deeper truth. And what I'm saying is actually, if we separate money from the divine, then we create a problematic situation for ourselves. And when we do this collectively, we create a problematic society. Um, and without naming names, and I think this probably is fairly universal on the planet, societies that have created a separation, and I will say separation between the
Mhm.
sacred and the profane, have a lot of corruption.
Mm.
And yeah,
Mm.
so
So,
if we fast forward quite a bit, what I
uh-huh.
want to say is that money is actually a spiritual teacher. It's teaching
Absolutely.
us by
Absolutely.
through mirroring and reflecting where we've gotten not only money wrong, but life wrong. And even then, I would hesitate to use the word wrong. That's kind of a
Mhm.
colloquialism because it's all a giant learning process.
Mhm.
So the idea arose at some point along the way that like there could be separation from God, and like an experiment began at that time. What might that look like? Okay. And I would say at this point, we can conclude that that experiment doesn't end very well, doesn't go very well. I've also noticed that a lot of people on this planet, like you said, think a lot about money. I would say prize money, perhaps are obsessed with money, are focused on money in one way or another,
One way or another.
focused on money. So money actually becomes, I would quotes argue, the most powerful spiritual teacher on the planet because people are paying attention. Like there are spiritual teachers who are
Ah.
very awakened, guru types and so on, who transmits enlightenment. People aren't by and large paying attention to them. Like, oh, that's
Mhm.
interesting, but I'm going to
Mhm.
go and make some money. And I'm saying this, the ultimate spiritual teacher is right in the heart of, the beast, the belly of the beast.
Yeah, yeah,
Now,
yeah.
it sounded like you were about to say something or ask something, so let me pause.
Yeah, well, so many things. And one of the things that I very much want to talk about is separation.
Mm.
And you kind of threw that out, separation from God, something other than oneness. But I feel like we need to explore that. We need to go
Mhm.
into that because separation to me is that ultimate place of forgetting. We
Yes.
forget what is true. And
Mhm.
and in that, money can also, or perhaps as you're saying, ultimately be that mirror, be that teacher.
Yes. Life, in whatever form, life is mirroring, life is teaching.
Mhm.
And because humans are paying a lot of attention to money, that part of what's in the mirror is very much in focus, very much in view, and very powerful in terms of the potential for us to see differently. Yeah. Now
Okay.
we could talk the
Yeah.
whole time about separation and how does separation or the belief in separation arise and get adhered to. And I would like to not go there since so many spiritual teachers have, but I will say that we tend to, in the state of belief separation, become identified with our form, with our body, with our thoughts, with our personality structure. That solidifies into what we might call an ego or a defended sense of self. And then egos are relating with one another through a medium of exchange, which could be called money. Now, money is way more than a medium of exchange. But even in the rather unawakened state, let's say, money is teaching us about relationship and right relationship. And we've observed collectively that society isn't organizing itself very justly. It has been said by wise people and it has been channeled and so on that when humanity is awake, there will be no poverty. So the apparent existence of poverty tells us we're not awake yet collectively. We have work to do. How helpful is that? That's one of the ways in which money is a spiritual teacher, very practically. Where it seems to be in lack, I wouldn't blame the individuals. No, no, I would say collectively as a society, we've organized ourselves so that we're experiencing the lack of knowing who we really are.
Ah, so that to me is connected though with separation. The lack of
Right.
knowing who we are is the lack of knowing that we are an expression of the divine here in the physical
Yes.
world. So so if I have issues about money, whether it's a lack or a desire for or anything, um, how do I look at that? How do I look at that
Mhm.
with with clear eyes?
Right. Well, honestly, and with some awareness that there are levels of being and levels of depth of being. And the most, we'll say, superficial level is the defended sense of self, which is a great definition of ego, by the way, which thinks it is separate from God and kind of floats above and somehow apart from the world. Now, when we stop defending our sense of self, then actually our sense of self expands. Einstein talked about widening our circle of compassion. When we're not resisting the world, we're not fighting to maintain who we think we are, then all experiences are welcome and our sense of self becomes more and more inclusive because they aren't held in separation. Now, that sense of self grows until it becomes collective and we have a sense of being at one with our family, maybe our partner, maybe first with our partner, with humanity, with all of life on the planet. And at some point, the sense of self becomes so universal that really self isn't a great word anymore. Um, then we really get into the terrain, let's say, of God realization. Realizing God is actually realizing that all is God, and if all is God, then you are God. Now, the self structures and so on are indeed expressions, and the divine loves to dance through form and individuality. The key is to remember that the individuality is a play in some sense, and so we're characters in the play at the level of our personalities, and we're the author of the play. You know, we're doing the lighting, we're
Mhm.
we're doing the wardrobe and the musical arrangement and performing on all of the instruments. Like oneness, oneness is all inclusive, so we're all of it. Um, Now, when we realize that we're all of it, our relationship with money is also different. So there's a kind of spectrum of ways in which we might relate with money. And this could be a good time to share a visual. I have a diagram that I could speak to
Okay, please
that
do.
illustrates the,
And if
let's say, the
someone is
path.
looking or is listening to this on a as a podcast, we can only urge you to go to YouTube to see this, but also, you'll describe it, Jeff.
I will. Yeah, I'll talk us through it. It's good to have the
Okay.
visual also. Otherwise, there's a lot potentially to keep in mind, but I
Mhm.
will do my best to keep it simple.
Okay.
Simplicity is a high art, in fact. So the stages of the enlightenment of money. We can talk about a journey in relation to money. Now, just like the journey of spirituality could be said to begin with the belief in separating from God, the prodigal child kind of running away or attempting to. There's really no away. Okay, so there's some rejection of money, let's say. And probably most of us can identify with or remember statements like, money is the root of all evil. Now, that's, by the way, a misquote. The actual quote, I think, is if I remember correctly, the love of money is the root of
Right.
all evil. And
Right.
even that, I would say, is a misinterpretation of a deeper teaching, which is, um, well, related to greed and over identification with, and
Hmm.
therefore
Hmm.
emphasis upon money
Right.
as kind of the all important. That's making it into an idol. But actually, if we love money, we love life, because in oneness, money and life cannot be separated. In fact, one of the early definitions of money that came to me is the active aspect of life, the movement of life,
Hmm.
the means through which life delivers experiences. And so to
Ooh.
think of it only as a currency of exchange, as a way of kind of trading things, is far too, I'll say in this case, simplistic in understanding of what money is.
Hmm.
Money is life. And certainly it's the movement of life. And we would be very challenged to draw a line between money and life. So that's an interesting
You mean to
philosophical
separate
inquiry.
them?
That's right. But nevertheless, there is the experience on this planet of humans doing our best to separate from money by making it evil, by judging it. And
Or by
I'm not
feeling
here
the
to
lack.
say,
That's the other
yes,
piece that I wanted, because people look at their bank account and they say, well, but here it is. This is reality.
well, this needs to be addressed because the
Yeah.
experience of money is the experience of money. The truth of money is deeper, however. The essence of money is deeper. And remember,
Mhm.
if if our bank account, and I want to say our collective bank account, this includes wealthy people and not so wealthy people.
Okay.
In my experience, pretty much everyone is worried about money, whether they have it or not.
Exactly.
Okay. So even if you have a lot on your bank account, it might feel like you don't have enough to do all the things you want.
Hmm.
It's amazing, how this human psyche works. So the apparent lack of resources is reminding us that we we lack a knowing of who we truly are. And when we know who we truly are, it may take some time. And it's not about having a big bank balance, but we will find that money flows more easily. So I want to actually get to that point by stepping through this diagram.
Okay.
So rejecting money doesn't work. It's like if one is in a nonprofit organization, that's doing great things in the world and rejects money, and says, money is the problem that we're fighting against, the nonprofit won't have money and can't do what it needs to do. So actually, we need to embrace that money has its place. Okay, so I'm not going to reject it anymore. I'm not going to try to separate. I'm not going to project onto it and say money is evil. And notwithstanding all the evidence out there that money has been used in abusive ways, that's true, or at least
Hmm.
that's, a fair critique. All right, so if we stop rejecting and separating, then we can reconnect with money. Maybe we don't remember being connected with it before, so we could say connecting with money.
Hmm.
Now, connecting with money means not avoiding it. It means honestly facing our financial situation. We can we can do some pretty interesting things though in connecting with money. We can, because life is, everything is alive, we can have a conversation with money.
Hmm.
And so I will often, these days, interestingly, not all the time, but recently I will often um, invite people to close their eyes and imagine sitting in their kitchen. Psychologists would call this active imagination. I would say it's more than what's happening in our psychological mind. There's a deep process here. So we're inviting money to tea. So money knocks on the door. In walks money. It's interesting to see what money looks like spontaneously. We're not conjuring this in our minds. We're
Hmm.
just seeing what is shown to us. And then we can ask money, now, okay, what do I need to know? How can I have a better relationship with you? How can I live more abundantly? And it turns out that essentially in all cases, I've experienced anyway, um, money in this kind of process I'm describing
Hmm.
has great wisdom to share, and we can all do this.
Hmm.
Now, connecting with money is a great practice. The more we do it, the better our relationship.
Mm.
Engaging with money and connecting with money are sort of similar, but actually engaging with money, you could say, is kind of like playing with money. All right, let's see what we can do together, right? And that segues into partnering with money. So let's say you have a business.
Ah,
Let's say you have a board of directors for your corporation. You can imagine, but again, I say this is deeper than imagination, that money is on your board. Okay, so money is a partner in the business. So check in with money, have conversations, ask money, is this strategy aligned with life? Because you see, money supports what is aligned with life. Sometimes when we don't
mm,
seem to have it, it's because we're working really hard, we're running really hard in a direction that's not aligned with life. And so money's not going to show up. Again, money is a spiritual teacher. And the way in which we will eventually discover we're out of alignment could be, we don't have the money to support acting in ways that are out of alignment. Money will not
mhm,
show up. Now, people will criticize that point by saying, "Hey, well, what about the corporations that are causing environmental harm and um, reducing social well-being and so on through their unconscious activities?" Fair enough. They've served a purpose in the evolutionary process of humanity, but as soon as their purpose, like for instance, connecting the world through social networking type functionality, as soon as that purpose is fulfilled, if the company is still not in alignment, it's going to decline.
right.
Yeah. So we might get a free pass for a while because we are serving life in some way, but the time will come, the day of reckoning will come.
Mhm, mhm,
Now, partnering with money. Again, money is our partner all the time. And one of the learnings from the series of money workshops, 3-day retreats, great fun, called The Consciousness of Money, was that how we are with money greatly parallels, even mirrors how we are with our intimate relationships, the close people in our lives,
mhm,
interestingly. So when I say partner with money, I'm not only talking about a business partnership, I'm talking about a life partnership with money.
wow.
So
Mhm,
yeah, remember, money is bringing experiences of life, some of which can be enumerated with a dollar value and some of
mhm,
which are much more kind of intangible. And the intangible economy, by the way, is vastly larger than the tangible economy, or the
mhm,
economy that can be numerically represented. And that's one of the challenges with economics, which is starting to be addressed. Okay, so we have a life partnership with money. Each of these stages, the astute listener may note, builds on the previous stages. So
mhm,
once we have a really great partnership with money, money is so woven into our lives, then we realize, well, I can't actually separate myself from money. This is where oneness with money comes in. And this is radical. For someone who has felt abused by the money system, and again, there are plenty of reasons why one would feel that way, I would offer it wasn't money that was the abuser, it was how the collective unconsciously used power and
mhm,
resources to well, accomplish some end, but not ultimately a good one. Like we talked about the experience or the experiment at the beginning, the experiment
mhm,
of separation doesn't end well. Okay. So how money has been used has been integral to the experiment of separation. But let's not blame money. Okay. That's the human
mhm,
psyche using whatever tools it has in a way that's not aligned with life. So as we start to really open to and realize oneness with money, some interesting things happen. Up until this point, as our relationship with money has improved, money starts to flow better and better,
mhm,
uh, and uh, and that's great. Oneness with money is like an exponential increase on that, and it's kind of like suppose there's resource in your right hand and your left hand requires that resource.
mhm,
Your system just automatically knows, how to move that resource from the right hand to the left hand. You don't really need to think about it. The field, so the field of all of life, of intelligence, all beings as part of all of life,
mhm,
is like it's just a bigger version of what I just described. So when there's resource over here and it needs to be over there,
mhm,
then it flows much more effortlessly, much more gracefully when oneness with money is realized. And like there's some deep esoteric points here about how this works. It seems to happen automatically. Ramana Maharshi talked about automatic divine activity. If you realize that you're one with money, like that's kind of like the hardest flavor of oneness to realize. It's much easier to say, "Oh, I'm one with the people I love. I'm one with the divine. I'm one with love. Sure, I'm one with pristine nature, but one with money." If you get that, you really get oneness. And when you really get oneness, uh, consciousness is powerfully activated in
Mm.
and around you, and that's how things can change. That's actually how we heal the world. So again, money as a spiritual teacher, if we listen and we learn, we are actually aligning with life, and our aligned activities are healing for ourselves, our communities, and the world. Now, we can still go further. Let me just recap so far. Rejecting money, connecting with money, better, engaging with money, like even more awesome, partnering with money, oneness with money. Wow. When we realize oneness, this is more general, I want to say.
Mhm.
When we realize indivisibility, we actually realize what I might call sourceness. Because if it's one thing to say I'm one with all of life and I'm kind of floating, and that's a level of non-dual realization. But if you're really one and it's indivisible, then you're also the source. You might not realize how that works yet being important. You will if you stay with it. So when the source realization, when sourceness starts to sink in, then we realize, oh, we can direct money much more consciously. We're moving into profound creatorship. And I like to talk about sending money on missions. Hmm. Okay,
Mhm.
so all right. I mentioned the word creatorship. Continuing on, creating money. Like, what do you mean creating money? Doesn't the Treasury do that? Don't they print the dollar bills and so on? Well, money in its essence is much deeper. And when we realize oneness, when we realize sourceness, we realize the root of money. We realize the root of our seemingly individual being, and we move into that which is actually creating money. And so in this profound creatorship, we find that money really comes alive, and it always shows up when it's needed. And I've found that whenever I spend money, whenever I have to spend more money than I was expecting, I can know that money is on its way. Like it's a system that is self-balancing,
Mhm.
and it's money's job to provide what is truly needed, what is truly required.
Mm.
And deep down, this is wild stuff. We're creating the money that's coming to us and that we're then spending. So this is why money is not just a teacher, actually, it's a
Mhm.
teacher of enlightenment. Because if we stay with it, not only do we get a better relationship with life, we realize we're the source of life. And that's a big thing to say. It's a big thing to realize. And the last stage, actually, of the enlightenment of money is being, not just kind of knowing it conceptually, but actually being the source of all. And this could be a lifelong adventure. However, if we know these are the stages and we lean into it, the
Mhm.
process accelerates. And ultimately, when we realize that we're source, I mean, we can say we're co-creating with source along the way, but ultimately, the profound source realization, God realization, creatorship is profoundly healing because voila, no more separation, no more separation believed. We don't think about separation. We
Mhm.
don't behave as if we're separate. So we're not destroying life.
And it's
Like we
not
would just
about
never do
healing then
that.
either. It's not about healing then either
That's true.
because that's an illusion.
Well, it's a necessary and useful illusion as long as we believe we're separate.
I don't know if it's necessary or useful, but as long as we believe it,
Yeah, I mean, we
yes.
could debate that. But if the belief is there, then the antidote, I would say the antidote
Mm.
ultimately is love.
Mhm.
And the experience of really being loved is a kind of deep healing of
Yeah.
that part that thinks it's separate. So is
Yeah.
it necessary? Ultimately, no. Is suffering necessary? Ultimately, no. It has been
Mhm.
said suffering is necessary until it's not. So
Yeah,
multiple
yeah.
perspectives.
I mean, I'm thinking about all that because these are all things that I've been writing about. And
Sure.
actually, by the time this is out, my book will be out. But
Great.
the idea of not needing to be healed is part of
Yeah.
that recognition that, yeah, we get to act with this remembrance, with this knowingness that we are part of it
Yeah.
all, and
You're
all is
right.
an expression
There's
of
something
us.
I use it. I've written about it, but it's not currently on the website. The ladder of awakening, and so you can think of the awakening journey as, steps on a ladder.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm getting, so sourcing, if the ladder has 10 rungs, that the insight and then the realization that healing isn't necessary is rung 7.5. So if someone is still kind of wrestling with life down on the third rung, they could be really opening to love and all kinds of
Mm-hmm.
wonderful things, but there's a healing journey and a process that, just is the experience. Now we can say the
Yeah.
experience isn't true, ultimately,
Yeah, and that's not
but
really useful.
right.
Right. Right. What's important to me is the nuance of recognizing it's all that journey or all that process of it's
Yeah,
not a linear ladder. It's a it's a
very true.
recognition. It's a
And it's all
remembrance.
happening this gets more complex, but and maybe even esoteric, but it's all happening simultaneously. So we're not
Mhm.
only, at one rung on the ladder, though,
Right.
some part of us might be having an experience and we're focused on that part because it needs,
Yeah.
to grow.
There's another whole piece to all of this, which or another kind of lens through which to look at this, which is the individual and the collective.
Hmm.
So we have our individual beliefs, which are colored by the collective beliefs and the and vice versa. But hmm, how do we work with that? There are these collective beliefs about money of not enoughness or it's the most wonderful thing or or.
Yeah. Well, we start where we are. And for most people, there's a strong identification with a sense of self. And so we start with our own beliefs,
Mhm.
our own relationship with money. And we would really do well to stop defending our sense of self. And then we can become more than we ever thought we were. We can actually realize we are the collective. And here's another example where we will never be able to really draw a line between the individual and the collective. They're interpenetrating. However, the distinction is useful. There's personal psychology, there's transpersonal psychology, which deals more with phenomena of the
Mhm.
collective mind. And whatever is in the collective is in the individual, and vice versa.
Mhm.
So when we work powerfully at the individual level, we're also doing collective work. We might not realize it. When we realize it, the work that we're doing has a more powerful effect on
Mhm.
the collective. Um, but ultimately, we can only do what we can do, what we're ready to do. So wherever we are on this kind of journey of awakening, whether it's a ladder or stages or, some kind of super complex kaleidoscopic thing,
Mhm.
we have to be present with the moment and respond as best we can. Right action, we could call it.
Mhm. 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 And I'm thinking about the people who are focused in that macroeconomic sensibility. They're looking at the systems that they might say, oh, that's unjust or inequitable. Here's what we need to change. And I hear you saying that in order really for that to happen, in order to be able to do that, we have to at least include how is that showing up for us? How are we showing up for that? Does that make
Otherwise,
sense?
it's an abstraction. Or
Yeah.
like the economist who talks about the macroeconomic picture without doing their own work can say very useful things, but probably isn't embodying
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
the promise of the work.
Mm-hmm.
So to really embody it, we need to do the work at the individual level, as long as we think we're an individual, which, for most people is a while.
Mm-hmm.
Then, when we see the bigger picture, we can work at the level of the bigger picture, interestingly. And it is a higher consciousness that can say, oh, that's not fair. That's not just. That's not equitable. So the more we hear those words, actually, to me, this is an encouraging sign that
Oh.
that consciousness is lifting around the planet. Like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
that's not compassionate. Um, and yet there's a lot of unconscious momentum in the various systems. And so it takes a little while for the systems to evolve or
Mm-hmm.
be
Mm-hmm.
dismantled in some cases. And even that process is accelerating a lot, which is one reason why the world seems to be a bit tumultuous at the moment. A
Yeah.
lot. I mean, we
Mm-hmm.
could have a long conversation about like what's really going on, but old structures of unconsciousness are being dissolved, dismantled, where they can still serve evolved at an increasingly rapid pace.
Yes.
And new systems are also emerging to replace the old. And so we find
Mhm.
ourselves in this uncomfortable period of the in-between.
Yes.
And the answers are not always apparent. The solutions are not yet available. It would be useful to trust that life, that money is bringing the solutions, is bringing the new, more
Mm.
equitable, fair, and just economic
Hmm.
systems. I've done some writing about what a true economy would be.
Yes,
So
and
there's
it's
an
something I want to
article on the
ask you
website
about.
called, yeah, Principles of a True Economy.
Mm-hmm.
And
Or an
I haven't
enlightened
memorized
economy.
what I wrote. It would be an enlightened economy. I don't want to overuse the word enlightened, plus it's more syllables. But an economy that reflects our true nature,
Okay.
I would
An
call that a
economy
true
that,
economy.
yeah, an economy that reflects our true nature, that true
Hmm.
nature underlined.
That's right.
That feels meaningful.
Hmm.
So speak into that if you would.
Well, I have the article handy. I don't want to read from
No,
what
no.
people can already see on the web, but I will say, let me just name the 5 points of true economy. What is a true economy? So, activities that benefit all and harm none are naturally supported.
Mm.
Google had the motto at the beginning, "Don't be evil." Well, okay, it doesn't go far enough because it doesn't say benefit all. It just says don't do the worst stuff.
Right.
All right. Okay. Well, I have to give Google some credit, but not full credit. So activities that benefit all and harm none are naturally supported.
Mhm.
Then people and communities have immense freedom to develop their creativity. Now, one of the potential benefits of AI is that that form of intelligence, which isn't like extremely high intelligence, but it can do rote things like really well, and it can do a bit more than that. Can free up humans potentially. And that's the promise. Now, there's a downside we can talk about maybe another time. And I think we might have even talked a bit about AI last time. But creativity, like humans are fundamentally creative, and
Mhm.
we are given the time and the space and resources to create. And that means creating the solutions that heal the planet, that address climate change at a global scale, etc. So, speaking of nature on a global scale, human communities and ecosystems are uplifted by economic activity, and you can see this happening locally, bioregionally, and ultimately globally. So, a true economy is actually one where the activities that are rewarded are uplifting of well-being for people, well-being for nature,
Mm.
well-being for the planet as a whole. Then businesses, yes, there can still be businesses prosper. However, they're not compromising the web of life. They're not producing externalities. So the economic definition of externality, I don't have verbatim, but the idea is the activities are producing unintended consequences that are negative. Like,
Mm.
okay, this industrial chemical plant is polluting its immediate environment, and people who live near an industrial chemical plant are probably socioeconomically less well off, and so that's unjust,
Mhm.
environmental injustice. So that wouldn't happen in a true economy, right? Because the only activities that benefit all and harm none are actually supported. Then the final point is people are supported in realizing their true nature. What is this all about? So now economic activity is in service to the recognition that
Mm.
the separation experiment didn't work, and it isn't even
Mhm.
true.
It isn't even true. And the experience of oneness, the remembrance of oneness
Yeah,
feeds the economy. See, that's the other side of it that we
right.
don't usually think about. We think about, oh, well, it's not financially feasible to save the climate. It's not financially rewarding to think about the species that would be harmed if we put this plant here. Um,
Yeah.
and yet, what you're saying is we got to go beyond all of that because
Well, in
that's just simply not
fragmented
true.
Yeah, it's simply not true. In fragmented collective consciousness, there's the experience of a business as a fragment that has
Mhm.
to survive, and it can't pay for healing the whole world. It doesn't have the
Mhm.
resources to do that. Well, actually, it doesn't need to. It just needs to realize that it's one with the entire web of life. Pause and
Mhm.
listen for how to operate in ways that are less harmful, less harmful, less harmful, and ultimately not harmful at all. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
life will give us some latitude to transition. Businesses that can't make the transition will disappear.
Yes, and we're seeing that. We're seeing that right now. It may not look like that. We may forget
Mhm.
that it's that, but we are seeing things that are just simply not sustainable,
Right.
trying desperately to hold on.
Yeah. So the sustainability movement is great. If we answer or ask and answer the question, what is truly sustainable? Only truth, only reality are sustainable. Anything that's
Mhm.
untrue, anything that's unreal is not sustainable and will at some point crumble.
Can we add love to that? I'd like to add love to that. Love is
I'm
sustainable.
happy. Try trifecta. Yeah. Now I
Mhm.
see love as a very powerful force that is weaving, that is reminding, that is connecting, showing us what is true, what is real.
Hmm. And creating. I mean, to me,
Yeah.
love is that energy of creation.
Yeah.
So when we allow all of that to be as it is, we have to start bringing that into everyday life. Because it's
That's
it's
right.
fine to have the great theories. Oh, it's fun. We can talk about this. But I know you're also doing this in the world, meaning you're working with companies. You're bringing this kind of depth of awareness, which is really quite profound. Let's just be honest here. And to the physical arena.
Yeah. Life is the perfect environment for not only learning,
Mhm,
but practicing and thereby deepening our realization of what we're talking about here.
mhm,
If we're just talking, again, it's abstract, we're not embodying it. Now, that has a certain amount of value. But until we embody it, until we live it, we
mhm,
haven't realized it. And until we realize it, life and money are going to continue to show us where we have work to do, and it's
mhm.
not it's not going to be a fun time.
Yeah.
So actually, let's do the work. Let's bring an enlightened or at least a much healthier relationship with money into our day-to-day activities and prepare to be amazed. You used the word amazed at the beginning.
Mhm,
There's a quote in the Gospel of Thomas from the Gnostic literature.
mhm,
I think it's saying number two, and I can only paraphrase because it's been translated in many ways. But if you're seeking, keep seeking until you find, and when you find, you will be shocked, maybe dismayed, we could say. Then you will be amazed, then you will, and this is old language, but you will
mhm,
rule over all things. So what does this mean? First, you're going to realize how unconscious we've been.
mhm,
And that's the shock, like, oh my goodness.
mhm,
Yeah, we need, and then that will catalyze necessary transformation. And then we will be amazed at our power to transform ourselves individually, collectively. We will be amazed. Humanity will be amazed at how we can address the wicked challenges of climate change and polluted oceans much faster than we imagined based on our previous experience of fragmentary collective consciousness, where we can't seem to get along well enough to collaborate. Well, when we're collectively much more awake, we collaborate effortlessly, and you could call that synergy also. There's this
mhm.
exponential increase in our ability to get real things, or at least real world
Yeah, yeah,
things done.
yeah. It's what I call co-creation, true
Fair
co-creation.
enough. Yeah, we're recreating, regenerating the
But
world
we're
to
we're we're
ref
doing that collectively. We're
That's
doing
right.
that with
Yeah.
with others.
Yeah, for sure.
Hmm. Yeah. So everything that you're saying speaks to both how money can be the teacher, be our teacher,
Mhm.
as well as the answer. Yeah.
To say money is the answer is another one of those controversial statements. Money is God, money is the answer. That can be understood very differently in different contexts.
Hmm.
And yet, uh, how we are with money can can guide us through these challenging times.
If I know that everybody's that's listening is in a different place with all this,
Mhm.
and if you were to suggest mm, something to ponder, a question to ponder to help someone open to what we've been talking about, how would you envision that? How would you
Yeah.
frame that?
Well, the map that I shared earlier could be helpful in part because it's visual.
But thinking
One can
of a
ask,
question to ponder for
yeah. Well,
oneself.
that's what I'm going to suggest
Okay,
here. So,
thank
so
you.
where am I on the journey, right? What stage of the enlightenment of money am I in? Am I still trying to separate from money? Am I still villainizing money and, trying to push it away? Or am I kind of maybe a little bit curious about it and starting to connect and engage and have a relationship with money and perhaps partner with money? Or maybe I've realized oneness because I've been meditating a lot, but it never occurred to me that I'm actually one with money also. You see, there are plenty of examples of spiritual teachers who might say very true things, and yet you look at how they are with money, and it would seem, I'm not judging, but it would seem that maybe they haven't gotten some of what we're talking about here.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
there are a lot of poor spiritual teachers too. I'm not saying that's wrong, but if you're one with money, you're probably going to have a more abundant relationship. So the question is, where am I on the journey of
Hmm.
money, of the enlightenment of money? Because if we stay on the journey of money, we're gonna find that the journey of money leads to the same place that profound contemplation and meditation lead, that mysticism, the paths, various paths of mysticism lead. They all lead to the heart of the divine.
Hmm. I remember that my teacher, Dawn, often would speak to how in the metaphysical, love is the highest frequency, the highest vibration. And in the physical, money is the highest frequency. And that has helped me to not villainize money. Also not to focus on the lack of, but you brought in the like how we really need to bring it into partnership.
Yeah.
And that is possible.
Well, you've raised such an important point. At a workshop in Australia, an Indigenous or Aboriginal elder stood up and said, because we had some kind of contemplative process to connect with money and see what
Mhm.
money really is in its essence, and he stood up and shared, he saw that money vibrates at the frequency of love. Like
Wow.
this was, kind of shattering for him actually, because the Aboriginal peoples and Indigenous peoples around the world have been abused through money and the
Mhm.
misallocation of resources and the misappropriation of the land and
Yes.
the mineral wealth of Aboriginal land, for instance. And so to really see that money vibrates at the frequency of love, that's quite a reframe.
Mm, mm. Yes. Thank you. Wow. And I'd love to end on something that we said before we even started the conversation today, about how if it feels right, it
Hmm.
is right.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the context was, I won't go into all the details, but kind of where to be in the world.
Hmm.
And I was saying it feels right because it is right. And we need to be a little bit careful about that. We need to have some
Good point.
cultivated practice
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
of
Of tuning
feeling
in.
for the truth of the matter.
Yeah.
And so we're talking about real rightness
Yes. We're not talking about
and
the personality rightness.
yeah,
So
kind
I
of like
like that.
passing fancies or something. But
Hmm.
that's right. If it feels right, if it really
Yeah.
deeply feels right, maybe it
Yeah.
is right.
Yeah. And I could even substitute the word from within that context. If it feels
Hmm.
true,
Yeah,
it is true. It's
yeah,
because it is true.
yeah.
Yeah. Jeff Vander Clute, thank you. Thank you for this conversation today. I've never said before, stay tuned for today's enlightenment conversation. And yet that's what came forth. So thank you. And how can people reach you and read some of these other articles that you've got a lot on your website, a lot of different writings that go
That's the
deeper
best
into it all?
way. JeffVanderClute.com. Just
Okay.
Google Jeff Vanderclute if you can spell it.
Well, it'll be in the show notes.
Vanderclute. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so very much.
You're so, so welcome. It's
And
been
I
a
want to
blessing.
say, if you have enjoyed my conversation with Jeff today, check out our previous conversation, which was Beyond Every Teaching. You'll find that on YouTube. You'll find that, on their podcast page, and you'll find it wherever you listen to your podcasts. So thank you today for being with us. And remember, you can join us here regularly for more wisdom, discovery, and illumination. And also, if you've liked this episode today, please do leave us a review, because that helps more people discover what we're doing here and discover what I think of as really the transforming of the world. And for more, for you personally, for your own connection with the universe, take the Quantum Connection quiz today. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us here at Wisdom Talk Radio. We wish you well in your conscious explorations. For more information and to join in the conversation, our website is wisdomtalkradio.com or at Wisdom Talk Radio on Facebook.